This is Bible Q&A, and instead of patronizing, I should be helping. So let's get into this. Question comes from the chat room. Says, what part of the Bible do you think is the most important for teens and young adults to read? Ooh. What part of the Bible is the most important for teens and young adults to read? Well, I definitely have my opinions about what I think are the most important parts of the Bible. Now, the stereotypical answer would be the whole thing. And the whole thing is true. But I'm going to be perfectly honest here. You're probably not going to read the whole Bible. Now, granted, you may someday. But the chances of you reading the entire thing, I mean, are you going to get through the book of Numbers? I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of it just is like, well, I don't even know what's going on here, you know, and eventually you're just like, whatever. A lot of people don't finish it. A lot of people, they skip and they move around. So here are the most important parts. I think these are the parts, these are the books that you just shouldn't skip, no matter what. Period. Okay? Genesis. Read the whole thing. Okay? Exodus. Read up through when Moses leads the Israelites out of Egypt. If you want to stop there, I wouldn't recommend it, but go for it. Though Genesis all the way through Israel coming out of Egypt, that's incredibly important to understanding the Gospels and a lot of the stuff that happens in the New Testament. Those are foundational for the entire Bible, so read those. Next after that, read 1st and 2nd Kings or 1st and 2nd Chronicles, either one. Read both, but if you're gonna only pick one set, then go ahead and only pick one. Now, Kings and Chronicles are the historical books of the reign of the kings of Israel. So they both essentially tell the same story, but they're slightly different because they're coming at it from slightly different perspectives. They have different stories that they're trying to tell. Both historical, both accurate. They just have different goals. They're trying to teach you different things about the kings. You know, I might be messing this up in my head because I have a bit of a headache, but I believe that Chronicles is more focused on history, and Kings is more focused on the spiritual side of things. So Chronicles is more focused on, like, you know, the more mundane stuff. Like, this is the king. He reigned from such and such, and this is what he did, and this is why he was our king. And Kings is more about, this king was good, this king was bad. Here's why he was bad. Didn't follow God's law. Here's why this king was good. Did follow God's law. And they go into details. Moving on from there. As many of the prophets as you can in the Old Testament, and I'm not playing around here, but if you have to pick and choose, Amos, Hosea, and Micah are the big three. Make sure you read them out of the prophets in the Old Testament. Those three are pretty important. And then, of course, Isaiah. Isaiah is a big book, though. You may not read the whole thing, and I understand that, but definitely read Isaiah nonetheless. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Now, moving on, what else? Clint, what else? Job is a good read, but if you don't want to read it, okay. You know, like I said, this is about what the most important thing is. Job is a good read, but Ecclesiastes, definitely read Ecclesiastes, okay? That book is the most overlooked, underappreciated treasure that we have in the entire Bible. I guarantee you will enjoy Ecclesiastes. You may have not even heard of it, but that's okay. Proverbs, read Proverbs front to back, for real. As far as the Old Testament goes, I would say after that, Nehemiah and Ezra, and if you want to skip the rest, fine. It is what it is. New Testament, Matthew. Read Matthew, read Luke. If you're putting a time limit on Gospels, what's the most important Gospels to read? I would honestly say Matthew and Luke. Now, some people might get up in arms about that and be like, the most important Gospel, but I'm just saying, for teens and young adults, I think Matthew and Luke have the message that is going to resonate with you the most. It's the books that you're going to get the most out of, I have a feeling, because Matthew is very straightforward about who Jesus was, and it talks a lot about, how Jesus interacted with the religious leaders in his day, and it's got a bit of an anti-authoritarian streak to it. And who doesn't like that, right? Someone standing up to the man and telling him where he really is in the big picture. But then Luke comes at it from a bit more of a historical perspective and talking about, on the more, in some ways, some of the more mundane side of Jesus' ministry and stuff. But Luke tells a very, very strong, compelling story about the kind of life that Jesus lived. Moving on from there, read Romans, read Hebrews. Those are the two books after the Gospels that are most important. And read Acts, definitely Acts. So you know what? I take that back. Acts and Romans and Hebrews. You have to read those three. You just have to. I'm not even playing around here. You got to read all three. They're so important. They really are, because if you read all three, you're going to understand a lot of what gets preached in the church today. Because at the end of the day, the New Testament does get preached a lot in church. And the Gospels and Acts and Romans and Hebrews inform a lot of what we believe today. Not to say that the other books aren't important, they are. But if you are looking for the absolute most important core foundations of Christianity, you're going to find them there, for certain. So, I'll sum up the list now that I've explained it all. What part of the Bible do you think is the most important for teens and young adults to read? I would say, if I had to explain it even less than that, I would say Matthew, Luke, Acts, Romans, Hebrews. And to distill it even more, Luke, Acts, Romans, Hebrews. And Luke and Acts are actually meant to be read as two. Okay? John's in the middle, but Luke and Acts were written by the same guy. And they're addressed to the same guy. So actually, they go together. It's a part 1 and a part 2, which is amazing, because part 1 is Jesus and the ministry. Part 2 is what happened after Jesus died and ascended into heaven. It's all about the disciples and the founding of the church. It's great stuff. And then Romans and Hebrews for, like I said, the absolute necessary knowledge of the Christian faith. That's where it gets worked out by Paul and by the author of Hebrews really well. Old Testament, like I said, those minor prophets, definitely read Genesis and Exodus, I'll provide the full list in the chat room, and then I will also email it to anybody who requests it. You can request it by emailing Clint at RemedyLIVE.com. All right. So I'll list it one last time just so we have it and we're all squared away. I think the most essential parts of the Bible to read are Genesis, Exodus, 1st and 2nd Kings, or 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Judges as well. Let's throw that one in there. Impromptu. Judges. Isaiah, Micah, Amos, Hosea, Nehemiah, Ezra, and then Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but Matthew and Luke, Acts, Romans, Hebrews, and if you really want to have fun, Revelation. So there you go. Enjoy it. That's the whole list. Now I don't have to have people email me after all, but feel free to email me anyway if you ever have any questions or want clarifications about any Bible Q&A video that is on our site. Clint at RemedyLIVE.com. I have talked a lot. Hope this has been good. I am going to play some music now. I will answer follow-up questions if there are any. Family Force 5 with Cray Button. It's coming at you now right here on Remedy Live, where we chat, we listen, and we love.